Hi, and welcome to this short introduction on FASTTRACK WMS, developed by Datascope WMS, based in the United States. This short introduction video covers a couple of slides that just positions Datascope as a company and FASTTRACK as a product, and what you can expect as part of the FASTTRACK implementation. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and take you through a couple of slides to give you the basic introduction. All right, so what is FASTTRACK? Let's start with that. FASTTRACK is an advanced WMS. This is not a solution that is basically barcoding on a little app that then talks to SysPro, like many of the products that are sold in the SysPro space, and they're kind of sold as barcoding solutions / WMSs, but they're not really WMSs. And I'll explain why in a slide or two's time. As opposed to that, FASTTRACK is a proper advanced WMS with proper WMS qualities. Just a little background before I carry on Datascope as a company. We've been developing advanced warehousing management software for the SysPro space, particularly for the last 22 years. Our strategic model was always to build a very detailed, very feature-rich solution, and we would target only the top 10% of the SysPro clients, so the very biggest of the SysPro clients, and we've done that extremely effectively. What FASTTRACK is now our solution designed for the mid-tier market, not the top-end market, but the mid-tier market. And essentially, it's the same software. We're not giving you a light version or some sort of scaled-down version of software. We're giving you the same core advanced software, but we're giving you the core modules of that, not the advanced modules, and we're giving you a very, very pre-configured implementation. And I'll go through some of the process flows in these slides, but essentially what you're buying into is the ability to buy into the full software, but to implement the core processes, which are kind of 99% applicable to all mid-tier businesses, both in manufacturing and distribution, or a combination of both. It gives you a great step into a proper WMS in your operation. And then in time, if you wanted to grow into the more advanced modules like RFID, voice picking, integration into conveyor systems, sorting systems, carousels, a lot of the customization tools, you would then move up into the Datascope premium level. But you'd only do that at a time where your business actually needs it, if you ever need to go there. So that gives a little bit of a positioning of FASTTRACK. So back to this point, it's an advanced WMS with proper WMS qualities. It's obviously been designed for the small to mid-sized SysPro clients. So this is companies that are running 20 users of SysPro, 50 users of SysPro, even up to 80 users of SysPro. Those we would see more in the mid-tier market, whereas traditionally Datascope is implemented in the larger SysPro clients that are running perhaps 160 users of SysPro and upwards of that. It's a fully pre-configured solution. So with any implementation of a WMS, the proper WMS, I'm not talking about these basic solutions, a proper WMS, the implementation costs, the services costs to implement tend to be very high. And they tend to be very high because of all the complexities within the software and the ability to change that software to do all sorts of really cool stuff, right? What we've done here with FASTTRACK is we've essentially looked at mid-tier businesses in the SysPro space, in both manufacturing and distribution. We've built out a standard set of processes that says these processes would fit 99.9% of these businesses in this space. And then we've pre-configured the whole solution to have all the labels generated in specific formats that would match those processes, the processes themselves, and the configurations of the settings to run in those modes, right? And by doing that, that allows us to implement a solution within your business, or allow you to implement a solution within your business on your own or with a partner, but at very little services costs. So the predominant cost now is the software, and possibly no services costs as you implement yourself, or if you choose a partner, a limited number of consulting hours and a quick implementation time. So we envisage that for most sites, this implementation will take between 4 and 6 weeks and can be run internally with a fairly strong IT team. The way that the software, or the solution, I'd say, FASTTRACK solution is designed, you can implement it in a very small range to start with, get comfortable with it, and expand it out from there. So you could actually implement just one individual warehouse, a raw material store, a finished goods store. The software sort of sits underneath SysPro and integrates seamlessly on a live basis into SysPro. And basically, you select to control a warehouse using Datascope. And if a warehouse is not Datascope controlled, the transactions simply flow through. So if I move inventory from a controlled warehouse into a warehouse that is, when I say controlled, I say FASTTRACK controlled warehouse into a warehouse that is just straight SysPro, there's no difficulty with that. You can do that, right? So you can actually just pick a single warehouse and implement. What we suggest you do is you do a site at a time, right? So if you are a manufacturing company and you had 3 manufacturing sites, we'd strongly suggest that you select a FASTTRACK, you're going to implement it at one site, end-to-end, raw material into work in progress, the finished goods aspect, get it up and running, get it comfortable with the software in that plant, and then go and roll it out to the other plants. And if you're more distribution oriented, pick one of your distribution centers and go and implement it at one of the more simple distribution centers, get comfortable with it there, and then expand it out into some of the other distribution centers and ultimately to all of them. So that's how we suggest you roll it out. It's up to you, of course, but that's our suggestion. All right, I just want to talk around what we call a track ID. Other WMSs call it a license plate or LPN, and the concept of that. So to start with, any solution that claims to be a WMS that doesn't have very, very strong controls at a track ID level or a license plate level, if they don't have that in place, fundamentally that software is not a WMS. A warehouse management system must go down to a granular level and uniquely, and this is key, uniquely number stockable entities. And I've given some examples here. Those could be pallets, that could be drums, barrels of product, there could be coils of wire, coils of steel, coils of whatever. It could be a big roll of fabric, for instance. But the key here is that when you receive any inventory, both in purchase receiving or through jobs, you are uniquely identifying, giving an ID number to each stockable entity. In this case, most cases, it's a pallet. You're giving a unique number to the pallet, and the software understands that unique number was receipted on this date. It came from this purchase order of this job. It's this product. It's this lot number, and we've got 350 units on that pallet. And from there on, moving that product within the operation becomes really simple because I'm scanning a unique ID, and I'm scanning a destination, whether that's to a job or whether that's to a sales order or into another bin. It limits the number of scans. I don't have to scan the barcode all the time, the quantity, the lot number, all of those things, because the unique ID carries that information for me. And then what it gives us is it gives us a much more granular level of detail that an ERP system, not just SysPro, but any ERP system typically doesn't give. So SysPro will give you, here's the warehouse, this is the stock code, it's in these 3 bins, whereas the FASTTRACK process is then going to say, yes, and inside those bins, I have 4 pallets, and these are the pallet IDs. This is when they were received. This is what purchase orders they came from. This is who actually did the receipt, et cetera, et cetera. So it's that level of detail that any WMS must have. Datascope's products or FASTTRACK is fundamentally built around that process, and therefore you get a very, very granular level of tracking and tracing through your operation for even non-lot traceable product, right? Obviously, if it's lot traceable, that's fine. You just get that extra element of traceability. Let's talk through some of the basic processes just at a high level. If you're implementing FASTTRACK, as you implement FASTTRACK, I should say, these are kind of the rough processes that are going to go in. Purchasing within SysPro, so raising a purchase order in SysPro, then processing the receipt in Datascope, printing your track ID labels and putting them onto the product so you can track that product going forward. In some cases, if the product is inspection required, those track IDs will go on hold. Quality would need to do their necessary tests on them, and then as they get passed, the quality will release those track IDs, and they'll become available for you to go and do a scanner-based put away into inventory. So the last step there is scanner-based directed put away, and that directed put away is pre-configured at zone level that allows you to kind of say this product is flammable, therefore directed into the flammable area of my warehouse. This product is an allergen, it needs to move into an allergen area of the warehouse. This product is a very heavy product. Maybe I've created a zone in the warehouse for heavy products that are on the floor, and it will do that directed put away into the logical areas of the warehouse to keep product together. Right, on the WIP side, if you're running any WIP operations like jobs, the ability to raise a job in SysPro, then review your jobs in the Datascope software, release them into picking slips. Those picking slips go to pickers. Picker then assigns it onto his name. The software then directs him through the picking process, takes him to various bins and goes and picks the product, prepares that product, and then on confirmation issues that product onto the job. And then the job receipt process, which is obviously coming out of the job, that might be coming out into finished goods, or it might be a job receipt that's coming out into an interim product. It's going to go back into inventory, and then we're going to repick it into another job to make a further product. But this job receipt, obviously done in Datascope, again creates the track IDs that are required, again post live automatically back into SysPro and creates the job receipts in SysPro, and then a directed put away for your inventory team to come and scan the pallet or scan the barrel or whatever you've manufactured and go and put it away into your warehouse. Sales order process, raising sales orders in SysPro, standard. Okay, then reviewing those sales orders within the Datascope product, releasing those into picking slips, and then monitoring who's got them. So assigning them to a picker, being able to see all the picking slips out there that are kind of released in started state, in picked state, and then all the way through checkout and final completion and invoice. So this process at the top here is obviously all the picking processes. After the picking process is a scanner-based process to go and deliver that picked order to a specific preparation area. Normally that's like a range of packing tables where orders go to a packing table, and at the packing table they get checked, they get packed, maybe put into cartons. The cartons get sealed up and labeled and so on. So, well, this step here is actually just scanning the picked product to a table so we know where it is in the warehouse. And then this process at the bottom here is the actual packing out process, validating the stock codes, validating what is being packed into what box or into what pallet, generating pallet labels, generating box labels, ultimately printing the packing list for that order and automatically invoicing it within the SysPro software. Or if you run dispatch note, you'd be creating a dispatch note. So that's the kind of processes that you're going to be putting in place on that side. Cycle counting and stock counting or stock taking. So the ability to take scanners out there, count bin locations, and then review those counts. And those counts can be at a individual stock code level or a bin level. Review those counts, accept or reject them or recount them. That process is covered. And then inventory counting or stock counting, which you would typically do probably on an annual basis. So opening the stock count in SysPro, opening it in Datascope or FASTTRACK, and then running the actual counting process, doing second counts, etc., and then posting up into SysPro and ultimately accepting the count. So those processes are all covered. Another process, which I have not documented here, is also the management of pick faces and replenishment into pick faces. So we'll allow you within FASTTRACK to define certain bin locations as pick face locations, dedicate SKUs or link SKUs, stock codes, into those pick face bins, and then set a min and a max level and a reorder level against that bin. And then the software basically continuously monitors that bin, and when the level of inventory drops below the reorder level, we'll add it into a replenishment list, and your replenishment team would then go and bring additional bulk storage, bring the product down and refill or replenish the pick face bin. And obviously pick faces become very efficient when it comes to high volumes of picking of orders, and you're picking small ones and twos. You know, if a warehouse is typically shipping out pallet loads of goods. You don't need a pick face very often. But if a business is very involved with picking 2s and 3s of products, then you typically want to put those in pick face bins, either on the bottom of your racks or in shelving with min and max levels, and let the software actually drive the movement of inventory into the pick faces, and then typically pick out of the pick faces to get a very efficient way of picking and packing orders, particularly when you're doing a lot of fine picking. So that whole process is also covered within the FASTTRACK implementation. Just some considerations around FASTTRACK. FASTTRACK WMS does not support SysPro serials. It supports SysPro lots. So if your product is not serial tracked or lot traceable, no problem. If your product is lot traceable, no problem. But if your product is serialized, then we do not support that. And then within SysPro serialization, there's 2 types of serials. There's serials where every product gets its own serial number. That is not supported. And then there's serials which SysPro terms as batch serials. So you create a serial which is actually a batch, and it's for a whole number of products. And our argument is that that is effectively lot traceability, and therefore you should be using lot traceability. So if you're using batch serials, we would strongly advise that you actually convert that across to the lot module, and use SysPro's lot module. And obviously we manage those processes throughout. The next point around FASTTRACK is it's a WYSIWYG implementation. For us to create an environment that makes it simply enough for you to implement the solution pretty much on your own with no help, external help, or very little external help, we've been able to design this whole process out, pre-configure the process, and then use the tools on this website to step you step by step with videos and user guides to actually go and self-install the software, right? But part of that is obviously a very WYSIWYG approach. This is how the solution is pre-configured. This is how it's going to work. This is what you're going to put into your business. That does not mean, and that comes to the point 3 there, that does not mean that you can't move into an environment where you're starting to use some customization, some integration to RFID, some more advanced tools. You want to customize your front end. You want to customize some of your scanner screens. Those things are typically done in Datascope Premium. And the upgrade path from FASTTRACK into Premium is a very simple process. It's just a licensing process. Fundamentally, it's the same software. The software just licenses the ability to now go into more detail or more advanced functionality, purchase additional modules. But typically, those modules require you to have a partner involved, just because they're complex modules to implement, and there's many ways of configuring them. So a customer running FASTTRACK, quite possible to self-implement, run the software yourselves. But if at some stage, if you move from FASTTRACK into Premium, at that point, you would need to select one of the available Datascope partners and start working with a partner, because those complex modules are difficult to implement and you'd need consulting for that. The next thing is just a limit in terms of FASTTRACK WMS. It's limited to 50 named users. So any company that's running 50 named users in their operation or less is a FASTTRACK customer. If you get to over 50 users, essentially you move into the premium band, in which case, again, we strongly suggest that there's a partner selected and involved with your implementation. In terms of implementing FASTTRACK, we strongly suggest that at least one person in your team gets accredited as part of doing this implementation if you're going to do it yourself. So we have a portal called the Datascope University, or DSU. And in that DSU, we have a specific accreditation on FASTTRACK. And we strongly suggest that if you're going to do this, send at least one strong resource onto that course. It will take a week or 2. And once they come out of that course, they've got a good understanding of FASTTRACK. It's free. You just have to register for it on our main website, datascopewms.com. And that will guide you and help you through this process. Having said that, the actual FASTTRACK website that you're on now has absolute detailed step-by-step guide on how to implement the software, videos, user guides, and the whole 9 yards. So that comes to the end of our just initial introduction to FASTTRACK. I'd like to personally welcome you on board. And I know that you'll be very happy with the product. The implementation can be a little challenging. There's quite a bit of work to be done. We guide you through those steps as they go. Don't give up. Rather start with a smaller range, like one site, get that site up and running. We do have an online help. So if you need some assistance, you can go into online help and ask a question or two as you go. But we've really gone the extra mile in terms of creating videos and user guide in a very structured approach to help you actually do this implementation on your own. So yeah, that brings us to the end. We look forward to having you on as a customer with us. Thank you.